It is a joy to welcome y'all to Newman Lumen on this Thursday morning. I'm Reverend Julie Tonneson, and I serve as the Associate University Chaplain here at Elon. And for those of you for whom this might be your first time joining us at Newman Lumen, welcome. This is a time for us to pause in the midst of a busy week and a busy day, to take a deep breath and to hear stories and music and song from the warehouse of gifts and talents that we have here at Elon. And so this morning, we are wonderfully lucky to be hearing from the gospel choir. The gospel choir was started in 1977 by a group of African American students who were interested in establishing a community in order to praise God through song. Now in 2022, they continue to practice weekly on campus in our building, which is a real joy because that means I get to hear them often. And they have a concert each semester. Y'all are also in luck because their fall concert is coming up on December 2nd in McKinnon Auditorium at 8 p.m. And so we hope you will join us to hear their concert then. There are flyers and information about the concert on the table as you walk out, so be sure to grab one of those. But without further ado, please help me to welcome the gospel choir. Thank you so much, gospel choir. My morning is already infinitely better. So now we are going to hear from Reverend Kirstin Boswell, who is our university chaplain and dean of multi-faith engagement. Prior to joining us here at Elon, she served as the Associate Dean of Student Support Services and the Associate Chaplain at Brown University, as well as the Chaplain to the Institute and Director of the Office of Religious, Spiritual, and Ethical Life at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Reverend Kirstin has did her undergraduate work, at the University of Chicago, or University of Virginia, and holds an MDiv from the University of Chicago Divinity School. She's currently completing her doctoral dissertation in anthropology and sociology of religion at the University of Chicago. She's originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and now calls Burlington, North Carolina home with her 3 children and 2 dogs. I have had the real joy and pleasure of getting to work with Kirstin Boswell the past couple years. And every moment that I sit in her office for a one-on-one or engage with her in any variety of spaces, I come away feeling both affirmed and like I have learned something. And so my hunch is that we're going to hear themes of both of those resonate with her words for us this morning. So please help me to welcome Reverend Kirstin Boswell.
Good morning. That was pretty good. That was lukewarm. That was lukewarm. Good morning. So, I guess let's dive right in. I'm used to talking quite a bit, but talking about oneself is a little bit different. So, I'll let you tell me how I did afterwards. So the question is, why am I doing this talk? Why now? One of my favorite things to talk about is self-identity. In fact, that's the topic of my dissertation. And so those who know me and who know the work that I've done in chaplaincy over the years would probably say that most of that work, as they've followed my career, has been about self-identity, about community identity, and how religion and spirituality intersect with those 2 aspects of identity. So my dissertation actually begins with a discussion of theorists, from ancient scholars like Plato and Aristotle all the way through contemporary theorists, some of whom I even am fortunate enough to call mentors, who have dealt with the questions that exist at the intersection of these 2 aspects of identity. I then move outside of the theoretical analysis of identity to the practical implications of the question. What does it mean to be a person or a community without a home? So it's kind of funny, because being relatively new to North Carolina, conversations always seem to come around to a certain question, which for me is the question. It's, where are you from? People ask because they're interested, because it's a crucial piece of information to be obtained when you're getting to know someone. You know, for example, if a person says that they're from North Dakota, you might surmise that they know how to handle a cold winter or 2. Or likewise, if someone tells you that they're from Wisconsin, you might imagine that they have at least a passing appreciation for cheese. So I get it. I get why people always ask, but for me, it's always a bit of a trick question. And I feel like my immediate response sometimes leaves people wondering why such a simple question would make a person, especially a person who talks a lot for a living, appear to be at a loss for words. It's not that I don't like talking about where I'm from. It's more so that sometimes I just don't know exactly what to say. Identity is impacted by our geographic origins, but in surface-level conversations, it feels like an imposition to go into all of the details of my convoluted identity. But as you, this morning, are somewhat of a captive audience, here's what I would say to people if I had more time. I would say, I'm from nowhere. Nowhere and maybe everywhere, all at once. I can talk about growing up in Beechwood, Ohio, a predominantly Jewish suburb of Cleveland, but not being Jewish and going to a private school in the next suburb instead of the local school, so I didn't really feel like I belonged there. It was just where I resided. I can talk about moving as a young teen to London, England, and how London and Beechwood are 2 cities that represented such opposite ends of the spectrum that navigating the move there almost tore me apart as a young person, and my response to that tension ripped holes in my family's fabric that really took a long time to heal. Beechwood is a reasonably affluent suburb, and I was very sheltered, as all of my friends at my small all-girls prep school were. And moving at a crucial developmental time to a major metropolis introduced me to cultures and religions and identities that I may never have otherwise encountered. But it also tore me away from every single thing I had known and dropped me headfirst into the deep end of life with a jet-set crowd of kids who hailed from the families of ambassadors and oil wealth that was unimaginable to me. I absorbed every single possible thing that London had to offer, but I never really fit in, even with those with whom I maintain close friendships to this very day. Their reality was and often is so very different from my own. If I'm talking about my geographic origins and how location has impacted me, then I should also talk about returning from the UK and going to Wellesley College after graduating from high school at age 15, and realizing too late that although I had traveled the world by the time I graduated from Marymount International School for Girls, a small boarding school in Kingston upon Thames in South London, where I boarded during the week and went home on the weekends, despite trips to the pyramids and sailing around the Greek Isles, trips to Morocco and Venice and Spain, weekend jaunts to Paris, safaris in Kenya and Tanzania, class trips, horseback riding in the south of France. Despite all of that experience, I was too young and too immature to go to college at age 15. I was brutally awakened to the reality of how ill-equipped I was for the college experience when I struggled with depression that challenged my identity as a high-achieving honor roll varsity athlete, because it challenged my ability to even get out of bed in the cold Massachusetts mornings of that first semester in college. A year later, and a little bit wiser, I transferred to the University of Virginia for a fresh start. After graduating, my work took me to Iowa, to Chicago, Boston, Providence, Rhode Island, and now to North Carolina. All of these places, each and every location, has left its indelible mark on who I am and who I am not. Despite living in so many places and spaces and connecting with people and practices all across the spectrum of possibility, I have no home place. You see, beyond the places in which I have lived my life, those cities large and small, the people, the experiences that have impacted me in so many ways, my identity is about who I am in a deeper sense, who my people are, and where I came from. Researcher Isaiah Berlin identifies belonging as a feeling which is fundamental for human beings. This deep need to be a member of a continuous cultural and historical community rooted in its own land. It appears that the home is not just the element by which communities are recognized, but the existence of an identification with home is the defining element of the strength or cohesiveness of a group of people and the sense of self-identity of the members of a community. Sociologist T. Guerin contends that home, nestled in a definable space, is the crucial place from which a person's social identity emerges, transforms, and is internalized and sustained over time. So what happens when you are descended from a people who were stolen from their homeland, who endured the horrors of the Middle Passage, the Maafa, were inhumanely enslaved, their geographic, cultural, familial, and spiritual ties broken and undocumented? This is the reality of my African heritage. And what happens when you are descended from a people who once claimed kinship with the land as far as we can see and beyond? A people who were met with broken promises over and over again, with genocide, the systematic stripping of religious and cultural values and identity, forced to endure relocation and the loss of ancestral homelands, leaving a trail of blood and tears. What happens when you're also descended from the white enslavers whose quest for land, wealth, power, and religious dominance created this whole mess? On the maternal side of my family alone, my family is Cherokee and African, Nottoway Indian, and white. So what part becomes dominant? Which is the most salient piece of my identity? Now you take that mixture and add in the jumbled patchwork of my geographic origin, and then ask me again where I'm from, where my people are from. Let me illustrate this for you. I cooked for many years. I hate to do it now. But one thing I know is that when I make lentil soup, the ingredients, the lentils, the carrots, the seasonings, the broth, the smoked turkey for flavor, with the addition of each of these ingredients and textures, each of the original ingredients becomes less and less distinguishable. The outcome is delicious, but it is neither this nor that, not solely one thing or another. I think for much of my life, this is how I have felt. Neither this nor that. Neither fish nor fowl, as my mother used to always say. As I grew older, I increasingly felt like I needed to choose a dominant identity to push to the forefront. In the racialized reality that is the United States of America, I'm a Black woman. I have consciously leaned into this part of my identity because when I walk out of the door each and every morning, that's how I'm perceived, and that is how society knows how to interact with me. But also because that part of my identity feels the most affirming and life-giving to me. And it describes how I choose to wake up and to move in the world each and every day. But that doesn't mean that I forget about or don't feel the pull of the other parts of my identity, of these parts of myself. In The Souls of Black Folk, W.E.B. Du Bois describes being born Black in America as being born with a veil, which serves as a border between one's identity as a Black American and one's relationship to the dominant culture. This veil still exists today for those of us who claim identities that are marginalized and not part of the mainstream dominant culture. Du Bois called this veil a double consciousness, or a symbol of the duality of self that's required to effectively straddle two worlds. Black Americans have needed to accept this duality and become acculturated into a society that does not fully accept us and that creates, upholds, and imposes the conditions for our marginalization at each and every opportunity. How that plays out is that part of the self is rooted in the larger community that does not accept people of color, and the other part is rooted in a community of people of color. This results in pulling at the Black American sense of self-identity due to feeling divided and disoriented and without a place to call home. That resonates. That's how I identify. Descending from different places, various cultural groups, doesn't mean that I can claim them. I'm not at home in Africa because I'm not African enough. I'm not at home among the Cherokee or the Nottoway because I'm not Native American enough. I cannot claim ownership of white cultural spaces because I am not white. I am bits of these things and none of them all at once. And there have been times in my life where I have felt empty because I don't fully belong anywhere, but have longed to be from somewhere. Sociologist Dilworth Anderson says, yearning is a psychological and emotional longing for connectedness to a place, for a sense of rootedness and purpose, and for a crucible of affirmation of one's sense of social and cultural identity. In the words of an anonymous author, I think sometimes that I am homesick for a place I am not sure even exists, one where my heart is full, my body loved, and my soul understood. Yearning. The Welsh word hiraeth may most adequately put this into words. It's a blend of homesickness, nostalgia, and longing. Hiraeth is a pull on the heart that conveys a distinct feeling of missing something that is irretrievably lost. I could never repair all the beautiful but broken strings of identity that are the result of my fractured patchwork of African and Native American heritage. I don't fully belong here nor there. I also cannot reforge my life's experiences so that I can fit more fully into the groups, the locations, and the spaces across which I have drifted over time. And equally so, I cannot order my soul to relinquish the deep longing to be, to belong, to identify in a simple, coherent, and linear way. But my story is not all about longing, about fractured fragments of identity and loss. Mine is also a story of beauty and deep, deep fulfillment. The place where I don't have questions and angst and my soul can rest because it feels that my identity is sure is in the realm of religion and spirituality and ethical engagement. I realized when I was 5 and attended Catholic preschool in a beautiful old church in Cleveland Heights, Ohio, that this is what would cause my soul to soar. I remember as a 5-year-old looking at those stained glass windows and being breathless with awe at what human beings would create in honor of their highest ideals, in honor of their God. My relationship to this realm of the spirit and the soul has not always been an easy one. I have struggled with many of the questions that have perplexed theologians over time: why tragedy strikes the young and the helpless. I've wrestled with what it would mean to feel called to religious work as a woman, as a Black woman, as a divorced woman, as a woman whose personal theology has pulled authority not just from the faith of my ordination, but from all of the faiths and systems of belief that I have encountered and studied and reacted to or against over the years. Again, it's about being betwixt and between, neither here nor there, even in my religious and spiritual identity, but somehow feeling settled, at ease, and okay with that. It is in this realm that I have found stillness and rest and a coherent and strong sense of identity, meaning, and purpose. Inukshuk is the Inuit word for the image of man. Inukshuk were large stone and wood statues that were placed strategically between locations on the tundra, and the purpose was for them to act as signposts to indicate the best and the safest passageway across a desolate and treeless land. I offer my experiences and my observations in the hopes that they may act as inukshuk, or signposts to someone, to indicate the best and the safest passageway across whatever terrain they're traversing. What gives me fulfillment and joy is that I hope to help others to bridge the gaps and smooth the frayed edges between aspects of identity and belonging, even as I heal my own. Thank you.